You're listening to the TJ Moore Podcast. Today's guest is Ariana Monell. She is an ICF certified confidence coach with 9 years of experience. She's been featured in Voyage magazine, and her past clients include leaders and teams at Google, Tesla, Meta, Nike, and Lululemon. And she shared with me that there was a time in her life where she went from rock bottom on a living room floor, and now she's built a coaching business rooted in every difficult experience she's survived. Ariana, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, TJ. I'm honored to be here. Super excited.
The first half of our conversation, I want to explore more of the practical techniques that you teach your clients. And then we're going to hear about some of the turning points in your life that led you to where you are now. You are an expert in working with coaches and business owners to help them learn how to show up on camera and speak with confidence. You teach them how to share the story that they've been afraid to tell and how to attract their dream clients and customers. So I want to start by asking you, in this age of AI and chatbots, why is it more important now than ever for people to improve their on-camera speaking skills?
This is something that is a fear for a lot of people that I work with. They're experts. They have incredible knowledge, incredible skill sets. They've had a lot of clients before in the past, but they're afraid to show their face. And if you're not getting on camera and you're not showing who you are, the authentic parts of yourself, sharing the messy, maybe like a live event or just sharing what you know on the video, it's going to be harder and harder for people to trust you. They know that it's not just an AI video made up or something that was written with AI slop.
It's such a difference we see now with even the big companies that they're understanding personal branding matters now. And they have their CEO, like with McDonald's, or they have somebody who's a spokesperson for the company actually be in the commercial. I've seen it also for Red Lobster, where they hired the new CEO and he was like, here's all the things that I'm doing, and I'm the one making these changes. And it put more of a face behind how are they going to save the brand. I want to share a review from one of the coaching clients that's worked with you in the past. This was from Michelle. She said, it's easy to teach something that you've read in a book, but it's more impactful and long-lasting to teach it if you have lived it. Ariana knows how to guide you into seeing your sharing and showing up as a part of your mission. So why is using video such a powerful tool now for growing someone's business visibility?
We're humans and we're personable, and we're not just looking to see a big fancy corporation or logos. We are all just craving that human connection right now. And so I feel like that is the one thing that you can do to really connect with your audience and your clients and the customers that you're trying to build.
There's actually some authors now that have on the cover of their book or on the Kindle description, it says human authored. People have to prove like, yes, I actually spent time thinking these thoughts and writing these words. And so being on camera is one of the ways to instantly get more credibility because they know that you actually had to plan for that.
There's an amazing study that was done in the late 70s, early 80s by a psychologist named Robert Kleck from Dartmouth. And he took two groups of people. And one group of people, he actually drew a scar on their face, like a scar from their ear to their nose on their face. They looked in the mirror. They saw themselves with the scar on their face. Okay. And then the other group didn't have anything done. Then he sent both of those groups out to have conversations with people. The group that didn't have the scar drawn on their face, they came back and reported conversation was fine. The group that had the scars drawn on their face came back and reported that in the conversation, they felt judged. They felt like it was cold. The researcher told them, I'm going to apply some moisturizer on the scar so that it doesn't crack while you're talking to people. And what he actually did was remove the scar. They were experiencing something called expectation bias. Because of the scar on their face, because of them feeling ugly, uncomfortable, ashamed, they went out there and they had preconceived notions and expectations about the information that they were getting from the other person having the conversation. We want to think about ourselves and we want to think about the scars that we carry, the bad decisions that we've made in the past, the shame that we have, the failures. And what we want to focus on is the different attributes and strengths that we can use to move past that self-doubt. And three of those that I think are very important to be able to do that is acceptance. So really just being okay with who you are, agency, the ability for you to trust yourself that you can do the thing that you don't know how to do if you just learn more. And the third is autonomy. And autonomy in this sense is the control that you have over your life. So really believing that we have control over the situations that we can control.
When people are trying to write their content or communicate their message or even work on a book, like they're like, I have a book inside me. I've always wanted to write it. I just don't know how to get started. What do you believe is the difference between staring at a blank page, writing posts versus using your own voice, like using voice notes to record your thoughts?
So instead of sitting down and trying to write out what you want to say and sort of having that change happen when you're trying to put the words on the paper and you start to overthink how you want it to sound. And so a lot of us, if we just are speaking into our phone, just like you're talking to a friend, that in turn is going to really transfer into your authentic voice.
I've studied how biographies and memoirs are written, and this is often used with reporters or the publisher, meaning that celebrity or that politician is not always the person sitting behind a computer for 9 months, reworking all the sentences. They usually will work with a professional to come in and record them, and then that person will interview them for weeks. And they will pull out all these stories that that person probably wouldn't even include in the book if they were simply sitting by themselves writing it, because the shame or guilt of some of those stories would just, oh, I'm not going to share that. But when someone's asking them the question, they start to activate all those memories and they start painting the mental picture for the reader. I want to ask you, how does the role of vulnerability play in how we communicate? How does sharing our mistakes, our failures, help others feel more connected to us?
Three different people can say the same thing, but if one person tells it from a perspective of a story that you have found yourself to be in at one point in your life, you're going to be way more attracted to that person, and you're going to be able to feel comfortable working with that person.
You've said most people aren't afraid of making content. They're afraid of being seen by people who knew an earlier version of them. So how do our fears about people in our social circle, in our day-to-day lives, stop us from expressing ourselves in business opportunities such as public speaking?
One of the number one reasons why people are afraid to post is being afraid of what other people are going to think of them. And this is something that really hits home for me. I spent a really large portion of my life, about 18 years, serving in restaurants. I served and I bartended. Towards the end of me working in that industry is when I started to get my coaching certification. So even though I spent a lot of money and I spent a lot of time getting trained, coaching people, learning the skill set to be able to be a international coaching federation certified coach, the Cadillac of credentials, if you will. Even though I had that certification, I was so used to being in the mindset of being a server and a bartender, which again, not bashing those, I made majority of my living off of doing that job, but that's how I saw myself. I also saw myself as the girl who was getting drinks after work, the girl who, a lot of my colleagues saw being bullied in middle school. The girl who grew up in a family that didn't really have a lot of money. And so I felt like I had no business being in business. And even though I had that certification, I had so much imposter syndrome that I was feeling. Some of the thoughts that I would have was, what is Katie from high school, that popular girl, going to think of me when I post this on her internet? She's gonna think, who does she think she is? Or what about this other person who I used to go and, spend my Saturdays day drinking with? When I start to talk about coaching and overcoming your fears and what it means to be a leader, they're going to laugh at me. When you identify yourself with that past version of you and that shame and those mistakes that you made is where you get into trouble. And I'll tell you what, no one ever reached out to me and said what I was afraid that they were going to say. No one ever said, what do you think you're doing? If anything, I got encouraged by people. I made a difference in people's lives because they saw me doing something really big that gave them permission to do something big with their lives. And if they didn't like it, they simply unfollowed.
Yeah, it's interesting that we put so much weight into opinions of people who we used to know like years or even decades ago. It's part of our old self or our old life trying to cling on and say, don't change, don't improve, because change is scary. We left a lot of those memories, those times, those situations behind. Yes, they're part of our past, but no one can see into your life like you're wearing glass clothing to the degree that we can, because we have lived it and we feel those emotions. And sometimes those emotions are still active this many years later. So I want to go over the steps that you give clients to help tell their story. And this is where listeners can either pause or take notes with some of these, write them down. So, number one, you said that you want to start with the problem to set the stage. Number two, highlight the turning point where everything changed. Three, describe the actions you took to create change. Four, share your transformation to inspire your audience. And five, end with the lesson and how it connects to others. So, what tools or techniques can people use to start getting their story out of their mind and onto paper?
Really looking at the moments of your life, the milestones, the pivots, the times where you remember being the most low, and starting there. What was the thing that actually helped me to change this? What was the decision that I had to make, or the direction that I took, or the person that I talked to, or whatever it was that was getting me out of this thing where things changed? And then we want to talk about what that looked like. We want to talk about the emotions that we were feeling. Maybe you had to change all of your habits and routines. Maybe you had to move across the state, whatever that was. What was the thing that you had to do that was helping you to make that change? What did that look like in the end? Who did you become? What did you gain from making that change? What was the before and after picture? What I like to teach people is trying to connect it back to your skill set and how you can help people and what sort of changes you'd like to see in your audience, and relating that back to your own story.
Some of the things that you've shared with me are you had struggles with mental illness, alcoholism, even when you were 18 years old. And one of the memories that you sent me that helped me understand how much your life has changed is you wrote, I remember stumbling into a taxi one morning, reeking of cigarettes and booze. We drove through the city and I watched these polished, professional people walking into their corporate jobs. I was jealous. I believed those people were born different than me, that success was something you had to be handed. And if nobody handed it to you, you were just out of luck. So, how did you overcome this sort of victim mentality when you were that age and you were starting to see, is it privilege or is there something I can do with my own agency to change my life?
We were kind of just the uh, middle class family, and we were just getting by, right? There wasn't a lot of money there, and so again, it was sort of that view of who I thought I was. And when I started working with Lorinda, she really helped me to shift that mindset that had been stuck the entire time. And I was trying to just work harder through it. I didn't even realize it was there. My past mistakes, my shame, the mental illness in my family, the addiction in my family, everything that carried down to me was who I was. And that I wasn't capable or credible to be able to help anybody. And she told me, Ariana, it's such the opposite. She said, everything that you've been through, you are able to help other people go through it. And that is when it all changed. And I actually decided to follow in her footsteps. She suggested that I become a coach. I thought she was crazy, but I trusted her so much that I just went and I did it. I raised the money, I put myself out there, and I ended up getting my coaching certification. And then I continued working in the restaurant industry because I still experienced imposter syndrome. And I sat on that certification for years. And then COVID happened and the restaurant that I was working in shut down. And I had no choice but to go out there and use my certification, especially when there were so many people struggling and there were so many people going through so much hurt and pain and mental illnesses themselves. I thought, this is it. This is the moment that I need to really go out there, use the certification, and do what I'm supposed to be doing right now and follow through with my purpose. So that was really the turning point in my life, is working with Lorinda.
So you've written that there was one week that was pivotal, it was dramatic, it was when you were living in Miami. And this is something you've told me off camera, that you had a relationship that ended, your mom found out what you were doing with your lifestyle, and you lost your job sort of all at once. So how did this week change your perspective or wake you up that you had to make some sort of change forward?
When I was 18 years old, I was living in Chicago, making those bad decisions. And then when I finally turned 21, going to the clubs was boring. I was going to a community college. I was living by myself in a little apartment, and I was so depressed. And I had a best friend ask me if I wanted to move with her to Miami, just spur of the moment. And I thought, yeah, why not? What do I have here? After a couple years of living in Miami, was that the worst week of my life almost. And because I had been getting drunk and I was on drugs majority of the nights working at the restaurant, I was just making the most awful decisions you could ever make. I was dating someone at the time and I was unfaithful to him. He found out that I was doing drugs. He called my mom and told her everything that was going on. And then that same week, that restaurant also closed down. So I had no job. The person that I was living with, who was helping me with a lot of the funds to be able to live in the condo that we were living in, just up and completely left me. He called his brother. His brother came over. He packed up all his stuff and just left me with the condo. My mom had moved to Arizona, after I moved to Miami, and I kind of had to come home to mommy, if you will. And I came back home. I got sober. I joined a gym. I got a job. I lived with her for quite a while, and kind of just got myself back on my feet and started shifting my lifestyle, and started just really trying to invest in myself in terms of habits and routines and my health. And that was when I eventually was able to join the network marketing company. And then after that, I met Lorinda. So that moment in Miami was kind of the rockiest of rock bottoms, and kind of the last one that I hit before I really realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to die if I don't change what I'm doing.
So another quote that you've sent me was that you realized you were no longer a slave to your addictions, insecurities, failures, because you gave your life to Christ about 8 years of being single and depressed and anxious. And you said that God blessed you with a husband, a new home, and a stepson. So I want to ask, how has your daily outlook or your routine changed with all these new elements coming into place in your life from where you used to be?
It's absolutely amazing what God's done for me. And I started going to the church that I'm at about 5 years ago. I was going through almost like a grieving process of who I was and letting go of that person. I remember sitting down and talking to my pastor and asking her, am I allowed to have non-Christian friends anymore? Everything was just very confusing, but also very hopeful. And I just remember feeling scared about not knowing who I was, but again, having this trust and this comfort that who I was becoming was going to just be so much better. And I was going to be so much more happier and freer. Jeff, my husband, and I started talking a little bit here and there at church. I ended up losing one of the jobs I was at. I got laid off as a corporate coach. He ended up reaching out to me on Facebook, and he sent me an application for a job as a water irrigation specialist on a golf course, which was hilarious because it was nothing that I was interested in doing. But he said, hey, I thought about our conversation and how you just lost your job, and I found this, and I thought of you, and maybe if you're not interested, we can get to know each other. And the first thing I thought was, oh man, he's funny. This is great. I mean, that was like the way to my heart was humor. And so we just started talking, and we headed off from there. And what's wild is that because I was growing into this new person and who I was, I didn't realize that I was capable of actually attracting and being with such an amazing man of God, someone who had the values and the ethics and the family that I just craved and prayed for, but I never knew was possible. And so Jeff and I started dating. After about 7 months, he proposed to me. We got engaged. We moved in together because we wanted to do the Christian thing correctly. And then we got married after we moved in. We also just bought a new home last year in October. And so I also have a stepson now. So everything happened so fast and it changed. And just these blessings just came pouring down and pouring down and pouring down. And I never really wanted kids before. And I think it had a lot to do with that version of myself of who I thought I was and how I was incapable of raising a child because of the decisions that I made and what my childhood looked like. God blessed me with this beautiful, amazing stepson. He has Down syndrome, and he is just the warmest, sweetest, funniest, loving boy that I could have ever asked for. And our relationship is incredible.
Ariana has created a custom coaching course, and it's called Aligned and Elevated, Building Your Brand with Confidence in Communication and Video. This is a personalized, live 10-week program designed to help you master public speaking, video storytelling, and consistent messaging, all while reprogramming your mindset to show up confidently in every area of your life. So what can people expect when they're becoming part of this program and working directly with you?
It's a one-on-one program, and you can expect for me to be holding your hand the entire time. There's a lot of courses that I've taken in the past where they're kind of cookie cutter and they were all recorded and you had this homework that you were supposed to do, but I didn't really have access to a coach. I felt confused. I felt overwhelmed. And this is something where I'm going to be walking alongside you every single step of the way. So you have that support, you have that accountability. So some of the things that my clients take away is they feel really clear on their brand messaging. They know exactly how to communicate what they are, who they are and what they do and how they can help their clients. We work on public speaking mastery, confidence behind the camera. We make sure that you know exactly who your ideal client is and how you can find them. I leave you with a sustainable content strategy so that you feel like when we part ways at the end, you really have a strategy and a plan moving forward that you can continue to work on your own. In between weeks where we work with each other, I'm available for you to text, for you to jump on a call with for a quick 10-minute session. There's different levels of people who join the program. Some people who have never created content before, some people who feel stuck, some people who feel like they're going through a transition. And so they're not quite sure how to speak into that new version of themselves.
What are some of the things that you go over with people when they first are meeting you in a discovery call?
Yeah, so I want to get to know who you are, what's important to you in this moment in time. What are you working on? What are your goals? And what do you see for yourself? What's the vision that you have? And what might be the thing that's keeping you stuck there? So we really kind of talk about where you are, what's between the gap, and where is it that you want to be, so that I can really get a good feel for, is this something that I can help you with? So it's really just kind of figuring out what they're looking for and what is their vision of what they want to leave with, and then sort of making sure that all matches up with my program and how I can support them.
And everyone can find out more about this course and actually book a one-on-one discovery call with Ariana at arianamonell.com. It's super easy to find Ariana on Instagram and LinkedIn. Just search Ariana Monell. I want to share something that one of your clients, Chelsea, has written about you. By the end of our time, I found myself stepping into collaborations I once thought were out of reach. Ariana doesn't just help you communicate, she empowers you to unlock your true voice and show up authentically in every space. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate everything you said and telling your story. I know people are going to relate to that, and also seeing the transitions that have happened in your life.
This was a very refreshing and enjoyable conversation, and I'm so grateful that you asked me to be a part of your podcast.
To hear more experts share their story, subscribe to the TJ Moore Podcast on YouTube, and follow this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to listen anywhere you go. Like and comment on this video if you found today's conversation valuable, and share this episode with someone in your life. I'll see you next week.